We do remember them. They are in our hearts. Also the ones that are still out there, we are praying for them to come back home safe. That's the reason why we put this out today as tribal government. Both the war chief and the governor's office got together.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez, and good afternoon, or good morning. It's rushing the day. Thank you, everybody, for being here and honoring our veterans, those that have never returned home, and those that are amongst us. This is a small way of giving them thanks for giving their full measure. And as we hear, when a serviceman signs up, he gives a blank check to the United States government, and it's his life. We have many of men that have served voluntarily. I understand that Indian people per capita have been the largest of volunteers. They were not drafted, that they actually joined voluntarily. I'm always pleased to be a part of these celebrations. I was not a veteran myself. I'm not a veteran, but my father was. He had 5 brothers. All 6 of them served. One of them came back with a Purple Heart, and you know, he was so humble about it. His face was deformed. He only had 2 fingers on one hand. His chest looked like the Badlands of South Dakota. When you ask him what happened, he just said, in the war.
But for 1,000 years, we sustained ourselves here. And we defended ourselves for a lot of that time. And as the Europeans came in, sometimes they even seeked refuge here with us. And as time went further on, the United States was born. And even during that time when the United States was born, we weren't recognized as American citizens. So it took a lot of effort to get that recognition from the United States. And I always like to give credit to our veterans for that American citizenship happening, because of the mass amount of Native Americans that enrolled and enlisted in the United States Armed Forces. And because of them, it helped us Native American people to gain our American citizenship. A lot of people don't know that, but it is the truth. With this year's administration, both the governor's office and the war chief's office, we felt it very strongly to honor our veterans and our people that are enlisted, that are protecting us in the outside world. Our tribal reservation is only 110,000 acres. It's a small piece of land to protect and defend against the outside world, but the United States is even bigger. And so, coming into our term this year, we decided to make a unified effort between the war chiefs and the governor's office to recognize our veterans, not just on today, Memorial Day. We wanted to recognize them throughout the entire year. So we currently have Veterans Highway construction happening. We have a living memorial that's going to be constructed. It should be done within a couple weeks. We have our contractor here, Mr. Silent Walker. So we're hoping to have the memorial, the living memorial, done by the 3rd week of June at the latest. We were hoping to have it done today, but there's a lot of paperwork involved, so I apologize for that.
My name is Calvin Mondragon, and I'm from Taos Pueblo. I'm a veteran, and I served 22 years in the United States Army as an Army paramedic. Thank you, Connie Loretto, for making the effort to put this on year after year with the help of the governor's office. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for being here. It's really an honor. Our police officers who keep our place safe, and everything that I can pray for under the sun. I appreciate that. Today, we remember and honor those who are no longer with us. Whenever I speak about suicide, wherever I'm at, whenever I speak of suicide, I always remember certain people from here. And if you don't mind, if any family or relative is here, and don't mind me saying, I always remember Mr. Cecil Concha, who used to live right across the river here. We remember and honor the veterans no longer with us today, those who served our country and protected our homeland. When I say protected our homelands, I also mean protected our communities. Battles took place just right back here, as you can see, the ruins of the San Jeronimo Church. So there's history back there, and you can tell what happened back there many years back. So our veterans of war goes back many years. Many returned home and were able to live a full life, while others died from injuries suffered in war. At the end of my speech here, I want to recognize 3 gentlemen. Many of the veterans returned home were severely traumatized by war, from the first wars ever recorded to now the Middle East War. Back in the days, and I'm talking maybe 20, 30 years ago, hardly anybody was familiar with treating post-traumatic stress disorder. When I was growing up, speaking of post-traumatic stress disorder, and I'm going to say this in Tiwa, describing abnormal behavior that were physical and emotional, or people would sometimes say, "Kunodo wal amaho," meaning your army medicine gone mad. That's how these men used to be described. But like I said, there was hardly a place that anybody knew that would treat post-traumatic stress disorder. So many of the veterans coming back from a war-torn country, suffering from being post-traumatized, self-medicated themselves to numb the pain, to kill the pain, using drugs and alcohol. As a result, that ended their lives as well, sometimes alone or in a hospital with families gathered around. We honor them today for their sacrifice. Before I close today, I'd like to recognize these 3 gentlemen that I wanted to. Since I was chosen to speak the other day, I really didn't have much time to put this speech together, and I just drafted it up last night. The first one I'd like to recognize is a man who has been well known throughout New Mexico and the United States. Here at Taos Pueblo, he was one of the very last and the only survivor of the Bataan Death March. Mr. Tony Reyna passed away just a few months back at the age of 100. So we honor him today, and we think about him today. There's another man that I want to recognize today. He is an older brother next to me who served in Vietnam and came back home with 4 Bronze Stars. Bronze Stars were given back then for heroism. I'm not sure what it takes for anybody to be given a Silver Star, but at the moment, the Silver Star is really not that important. I think what's more important is the lives, the hundreds of lives that he saved in South Vietnam because of his heroic actions that earned him a Bronze Star. My brother John Paul Mondragon was a classic textbook example of somebody who suffers post-traumatic stress disorder. And he was one who decided that either there was no hope, he couldn't find a place, he didn't know who to ask, so he started self-medicating himself. And he drank a lot. and he died several years back from alcohol. As a matter of fact, that's one of his fatigue shirts laying on the table. So we wanted to honor him today as well. The other person I want to recognize today, I knew him many years back. When I saw this man, he was a veteran. He had served approximately 2 tours, extended tours in Vietnam. When he came home, I saw this man well-dressed, clean, his hair combed back, his shirt and pants and shoes shining, his pants ironed. But sometimes I saw this man sitting at the table, trembling a coffee cup for about maybe 2 to 3 hours at a time, just staring at airspace. And what I mean by airspace is when I look at you from here, I'm looking at the space in between. And that's what he was looking at. He would sit there for hours and hours and just stare. His mom would clean the house and he would just sweep around him and didn't want to bother him or touch him. Sometimes you could hear this man yell, just yell. He lived on the south side, just below the Taos Day School, and sometimes you could hear him yell almost halfway down. When I saw him yell at one time, you could see the horror on his face. And back then, I kind of never figured out what was going through his mind. Sometimes I could hear him, and people would hear him, and they would say that they hear somebody singing in strange language. When I heard him at one time, this man was sitting in his house singing in Vietnamese. All I want to say about this man is he was one heck of a soldier, that he was one of the only 2 United States Marine Corps gunnery sergeants. Today, I would like to remember and honor Mr. Rudy Left Hand.
Valentino Cordova, Richard Deertrack, Jimmy Duran, Ralph Espinosa, Don Espinosa Sr., Carmen Gala, Michael Gala, Geronimo J. Harone, Jerry Harone, Anthony Gomez,